Smoke rose over Beirut this Friday morning after a pre-dawn strike, with Lebanon's health ministry later reporting that 2 people were killed. Israel has been waging war against the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah across Lebanon since the 2nd of March, when the group launched rockets into Israel in response to the killing of Iran's supreme leader. Over 1,000 people have been killed and around 1 million internally displaced so far. Now, the Committee to Protect Journalists is calling for an impartial investigation into the killing of Hussein Hammoud, a freelance journalist who worked for the Hezbollah-affiliated broadcaster Al Mana TV. He was killed in an Israeli strike on the southern city of Nabatye on Wednesday. Well, for more on the situation in Lebanon for journalists specifically, we can bring in Ayman Mhanna, Executive Director of the Samir Kassir Foundation. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24 today. Would you please start by telling us what exactly it is that your foundation seeks to do?
Our foundation is a press freedom organization. We monitor all types of violations targeting journalists, media professionals, and also culture professionals. We provide direct assistance, emergency support, crisis response, safety training to journalists, and we try to support independent media voices that are trying to promote accountability-oriented journalism in a region where media is very often captured by political and business interests.
Now, a Lebanese journalist was killed on Wednesday during Israeli airstrikes. What more can you tell us about the conditions that journalists are working under in Lebanon today?
The situation for journalists in Lebanon is paradoxical. On the one hand, it is one of the countries in the region where the level of press freedom is relatively higher, where diversity of opinions, especially towards such a divisive issue, such as the current war, is present in the media landscape in general. At the same time, safety preparedness for journalists is extremely low. Extremely low in a context where Israeli targeting of journalists has been documented in Gaza and in Lebanon. During the last episode of the war in 2024, 12 Lebanese journalists lost their lives. In the recent war, 2 have already been killed. Others have been targeted, very often by indiscriminate attacks on residential areas where journalists are present. And there were instances where people were clearly identified as journalists and were targeted by the Israeli army. This is something really dangerous that requires the investigations that CPJ, Human Rights Watch, and others have been calling for. There are several measures that the Lebanese government could have taken through the ICC that Lebanon refused to take, paradoxically again, under pressure from Hezbollah. During the last war, last episode, in October 2023, a Lebanese journalist was killed. The Lebanese government wanted to go to the ICC and backpedaled months later because Hezbollah as well did not want the ICC to be involved because they might look at crimes they have committed as well against journalists and war crimes in general. So this is why having a country stuck between an army such as the Israeli army that never actually cares about protecting journalists, and internal parties that have also equally been responsible for the assassination of journalists throughout the years, is a situation that makes impunity the rule, and this reduces significantly protection of journalists covering conflict.
Now, you say the Lebanese government has come under significant pressure from Hezbollah not to take these cases to the ICC, for example. Could that be something that might be about to change? We have heard a generally tougher stance towards Hezbollah from the current Lebanese government.
We hope so. What we absolutely need is accountability to be the rule, is impunity to end. This is why the Lebanese government has to take its positions based on the national interest of Lebanon, the national interest of a country whose constitution upholds the values of freedom of the press in a very clear way. So it's not because we want to accommodate the Americans and the Israelis that we turn a blind eye to the crimes perpetrated by the Israeli army. And it's not because we care about preserving some kind of false national unity that we turn the blind eye to the long list of crimes that Hezbollah has committed against journalists. What we need is not a policy of alignment with foreign interest. And this policy of alignment with foreign interest is exactly the reason why the Lebanese government is so weak today and Lebanon is in a state of total destruction. What we need is a new type of policy that put Lebanese interests first, the rule of law first. It might sound almost naive and optimistic and almost as a utopian point of view in these times. But honestly, this is exactly what is left for us. Because if we only base our policies on alignment with tactical, short-term positions based on who's strongest now, we maintain a situation of real fragility that doesn't allow the state of Lebanon to become a credible actor, neither for its citizens nor for its international partners.
Now, Russia has recalled the Israeli ambassador after Israeli strikes in Lebanon almost killed its reporters for state Russian TV. Does that external pressure, in your opinion, mean anything to Israel? Are they listening?
If past behavior is an indicator of future behavior, unfortunately not. But I, as a Lebanese citizen leading a Lebanese organization, have one constituency, the Lebanese people and my government, pushing them to do the right thing, pushing them to enhance the access to protective equipment for journalists. My organization has submitted a request for the Lebanese government to import dozens of helmets, of vests that we will be distributing for free to journalists and basically lending for journalists covering the conflict. It's the responsibility also of media leaders, media owners, of newsrooms to equip their journalists with the safety they need, with the hostile environment training they need, and with the equipment they need. And it's also the responsibility of our government to seek every judicial avenue in order to hold the perpetrators of crimes against journalists accountable. Political pressure is needed, but at the same time, we cannot wait for it to materialize to then help journalists. Our emergency is now. The need to equip journalists with the safety equipment, with the safety training is now, and only political posturing will not help journalists.
And we have time for just one more question, I'm afraid. Changing tack slightly, we know that over 1 million people have been displaced in this latest eruption of the conflict. Could you give us an idea of how the country and its people are coping with this mass and sudden internal displacement?
It's not that sudden, unfortunately. Lebanon has been warned for years and for months recently that the war might resume in a very violent way if Hezbollah, interferes again by sending rockets onto Israel. And Hezbollah did just that. So the issue here is that we knew it will happen. Preparedness was low from all sides, but at the same time, solidarity in Lebanon is always something that is heartwarming to see the level of popular solidarity that is always present to provide support for the displaced. The Lebanese government, while failing at asserting its sovereignty, has not failed in trying to organize aid and assistance to IDPs in the most professional way, given the limited resources they have. However, what is really dangerous is the political discourse that is not trying to seek, neither from Hezbollah's side nor from its opponents, any kind of unity. We're back to a language of hostility, of accusing the other of treason, and this is trickling down to the popular reaction, and with levels of hate online, with levels of harassment, of hate speech, basically on sectarian levels, that is also growing. So this level of hate speech has become so dangerous that it might endanger the solidarity that initially was positive, that we saw during the first weeks and first days of the war. And if the situation continues without a sound political settlement that preserves Lebanon's sovereignty long term, I'm afraid that civil strife and civil divisions will become more dangerous for the Lebanese social fabric than a war itself.
Ayman Mhanna, Executive Director of the Samir Kassir Foundation, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us at Around the World today. Thank you.